Morning all, welcome to our Unstoppable Entrepreneur Live Season 2, Episode 9, where we are talking about all things sales. I thought we'd do something a little different today and hang out outside. Now, with a little bit of luck, the internet connection will be good and stable and you'll be able to hear me just perfectly. Now, some of the things that I have found when talking to people, and I know this was what I was like, they're like, oh, I don't want to make sales. They want to help clients, they want to make money, they want to get people enrolled and stuff like that, but they don't want to make sales. So I think a lot of this, and you guys can let me know as you're listening to this if you want to, I think a big part about it, and I know for me, when I first started marketing and getting on the phone with people, I was really worried that they would think that I was pushy, that I didn't want to be sitting there convincing them that they needed to work with me or that they should work with me, or I didn't want them feeling bad, I didn't want them feeling pressured, I didn't want to feel bad or feel like I was pressuring anyone. I just really wanted to help people. And gosh, I remember there was some days where I would procrastinate over picking up the phone and calling people and talking to people because I was so worried about about how it would go on the other end of the phone, I guess. And lots of people that I talk to, even these days, tell me similar kinds of things. So how do we fix that? Because what we know, and you guys know this already, you know this, the way that we help people in the biggest way possible is by having them become a client of yours. And the way that exchange happens is that they pay you money and you provide them an exceptional service and you do what you do really, really well. Yeah? Awesome. Of course, that's what happens. So how do we get to that point where we can have a conversation about exchanging money for service in the simplest way possible and in a way that feels really good for you and feels really good for them as well? One of my big things is around, I really want my people to believe that the choice to work with me is a no-brainer. That they're sitting there thinking like, as much as one can, Nicola, you are the best person that I could possibly have working with me. You're the best. I believe this. I'm going to do the work. That's a big one. And, for all intents and purposes, you are the person that I need to help me grow my business. That's really the kind of state that I want people in. And I don't want to sit there convincing them that that's how they need to get into, right? So I guess the way that I stepped through, and I've got some notes in front of me to make sure I remember. I was trained initially through Westpac. I worked for Westpac for 12 years and we followed a sales process, right? Asking questions, finding out where people were, what they needed, making appropriate recommendations. A doctor does the same thing. Yep, they find out where you're at, they make a prescription so that you can get better or heal or whatever it is that needs to happen. So for me, when I started this business in 2010, I found it really kind of hard to take that process that I already knew and translate it into my business. And one of the big points of resistance for me was because all of a sudden I'm selling me, not like a call girl or something, but I'm selling me. I was selling my expertise. I was selling my experience, my knowledge, my support, my help, my training. And there's a lot of responsibility that comes along with that. And I was happy to do the work, but I was just so scared that, I just didn't want to have to convince people that they needed me. And so I really resisted a sales process. And it's quite interesting. I started working with a mentor towards the end of 2012, actually. And the way that they did sales was very kind of like down the line, really firm, very no. And look, the process worked. It felt really uncomfortable to start with. And it was where it was a script, right? So I would follow a script when I had salespeople working with me as well, like we'd all be following the script and it worked. Hey Fleur, it worked and it was great. But it's still, there was a point there where it's like we were enrolling people and it was awesome, but I wanted to do things in a slightly different way, and I started blending some different things that I'd learned from my corporate career with the other training that I've done, with some other things that I'd learned, and I started to have a bit more of a play around with some stuff. And what I came up with was a process that I called the Gavin O process. So everything has an acronym because that's the gift that Westpac have given me. It's finding fucking acronyms for absolutely everything. So the Gavin O process, the way that it looks, like the very first part, and you can write this down so that it will be helpful. The first thing that we need to do when we're talking to people is gather and create rapport, right? So the way that I really like to do it is I like starting off conversations really light and fun and things like that. Now, the reason for this is because everybody else is sitting there going like, hi, I can see you on their flow, so hi, can I speak to Fleur, please? And you kind of know, you're just kind of like, oh my gosh, stab myself in the face already, right? Before anything's even happened, you know it's going to be a sales call. They know it's going to be a sales call. You sound like every other salesperson on the planet. And so, I like to get people laughing, and, I think that's really fun. And I learned that from some previous mentors. So it's like, is that the amazing Flo? You're the very person that I'm looking for. And that, it sounds a bit cheesy. And I actually saw a post about this last week where people were like, oh my God, this is so crap. And, rah, rah, rah. And I'm like, you know what? I actually like that part of the process. I think it's fun. I think it's light. It gets people listening. So it's a really great, we call it a pattern interrupt. It's a really great pattern interrupt that has people going like, I'm amazing. Yeah, that's it. That's the amazing me. Yes, I'm amazing. Who is this? And they start laughing, and I think it's fun. So that's the first thing that we want to do is we want to grab their attention, and that's even if the appointment is scheduled in, why not start a conversation having fun and laughing and then getting stuck into the nitty gritty. I think it's a nice thing to do. So that's the G, right? And then you kind of say like, oh, it's Nicola calling, and I'm ringing you because you popped your information in for a webinar of mine. That's normally how this goes. Or you booked in a session, super excited to meet you, and that's the first part. The next part of the process, so A, because Gavin, the next letter in Gavin is A, is we're going to set the agenda. And I think this is really great. So there's a couple of different ways of doing it, and it's really about, number one, letting people know what's going to happen and making it really, really clear, because nobody has time for bullshit. So many people, we know what's going on, right? People understand that it's a sales call, right? They're not stupid, and they're there to get as much out of it as they can, as are you, and you may or may not make a decision to work together. So the way that I setting the agenda is, so, you know what? I don't want to hassle you. I'm just going to ask you a bunch of questions. You can ask me anything that you like. And if it makes sense that we talk about how to work together, then we'll do that. Does that sound okay with you? Right? So it's just no pressure. It's easy breezy. And if we decide that we're a fit, then that's awesome. And if we decide that we're not, then that's totally great too. I'm just really happy talking to as many people as I can. Now, I know that if I'm talking to people, that there will be some people who will say, hey, Nick, how do we work together? Can you train me? And if it makes sense with what they're doing, we'll talk about that. And if I can't help them, then I'll give them a plan type thing or an outline of what they need to do next. Or I might refer them. I had this happen probably half a dozen times last week. I couldn't personally help these people, so I sent them off to a guy that I know who only works with people who have product-based businesses. I sent other people over to a woman in the States who I know does really amazing work with MLMs. So, it's like I want to give people as much value, and I know that when you're on the phone with someone that you're in that boat too, right? You just want to help people. And I think the thing with that is that sometimes we can get really hung up. Hey, Sarah, we can get really hung up on what the outcome may or not be on that call. But if you're stepping into a phone conversation with someone hoping to make a sale, expecting to make a sale, thinking that you're going to have to convince them, it's just going to go pear-shaped really fast. They can feel it. You can feel it. It just feels really shit. So I wouldn't do that. So we've done G, we've done A. So now we're going to get into the V in the V of Gavin, because that's the third letter. So I want you to imagine that you've got a big letter V, right? And I don't know if this is mirrored or not on your side. So what I do on the left-hand side of the V, on the left, I actually draw this on my piece of paper. On the left-hand side of the V, you're going to find out what's going on in people's lives. What are they like? Where are their challenges? Where are they stuck? Where do they feel like is a really big gap? What's wrong? Like, so for example, I've got an electrician here today changing over some downlights, and my issue was that there wasn't enough light in my kitchen. The old ones there looked really crappy and were like, they're half falling out. They're not really half falling out of the ceiling, I'm exaggerating, but you know, it's falling out of the ceiling and it means that I can't see properly in the kitchen. The lighting's really shit. It's really inefficient. One of the globes have gone, and you know, they're all my challenges around that. So on the left-hand side is like, okay, so what are you guys experiencing? No, not you, but your people. What are they experiencing? How are they feeling right now? Okay, and when you're on the phone with someone, they've given you their details because they have a problem, yes? Or because they want something. Yes, Sarah, we do love Gavin. So you've got all of that stuff that'll go over on the right-hand side of this big V. So I actually draw it like a really big V like that. So it's an A4 piece of paper. The first half is usually like, and then over on the left, I've got all their problems. So now we need to do something over on the right-hand side. So on the right-hand side of the V, it's all of their dreams, their desires, their goals, what's the ultimate outcome for them, how are they going to be feeling when this is fixed and done, and stuff like that, right? So you get all of that stuff down. And then what you'll start to notice, because I don't have a pen, I'm drawing with my finger, so we were imagining, big V here, all the sad stuff, all the great stuff. When you feel like you have got the perfect solution for them, which may or may not be working with you, and you know that you can take them from this bit over here all the way over here, that's when you know you've kind of got enough there to substantiate a recommendation if you decide to make that recommendation. Okay, so in your head, you know beyond a shadow of a doubt that this would be the way that you can take them from over here to over here. If you imagine the Grand Canyon, there's a big gap, right, between each of those edges. We're building a bridge from one side to the next. I hope that makes sense. So that's the V in the Gavin process. So then we've got I. In the I section, what I like to do in here is to, again, find out a little bit more. We're investigating a solution. You might even make a couple of recommendations in this section here. So I is investigate. Now, in here, be inquisitive. We're going to ask more questions in here again. So sometimes we'll look at what the plan might be. We might have a look at, you know, in my instance with what I do, we talk about niching. So who's your avatar? Who's your ideal client? What can we do with that? And I make sure again that they've got, if the conversation were to end at that point, that they have had amazing value. They know what a next step might be in order to start progressing. All right. So that's usually where, if that's going to end, I feel like I've given huge amounts of value. They're feeling like, wow, I wasn't expecting this, which is great because they've got clarity usually at that point, right? Now, what happens from there is, okay, so these are the next steps. And I just say, like, so do you have any other questions? So you can ask that as well. So, you know, what other questions do you have? Is there some other way that I can help you? Now, what that does is it puts the onus back onto the person that you're talking to either say, nah, that's great. I'm awesome. Thank you so much. And you'll be like, okay, cool. That's great. Brilliant. If anything changes and you want some help, you know where to find me. And that's it. You've had a great conversation. They've had a great conversation and you're off and running. The other part about that though is they'll often say, okay, so that's great. You've given me huge amounts of value. Is this something that you can train me in, or can you help me with this, or can I hire you, or how do we work together, or whatever else? And at that point, you have a decision to make. Does this person seem like someone you might want to work with, Or do they need to go and do some other things before that happens? Or is it like, you know what, it's, hey Joe, you know, it doesn't really feel like it's a right fit. Either way, it doesn't matter. You've got then a decision to make. Now, if you decide to move forward, what you're going to do is you'll make an offer to them, and that's where we start to negotiate those next steps. Okay, so you'll outline your course, you'll outline your program, you'll outline your coaching, you'll outline the way that it works, the amount of support that they get. So this is where the detail really starts to come in, and you can say to them, so, you know, does that sound like it ticks all the boxes for you with what it is that you need to learn and what you feel like the next steps are? And they'll say yes or no. And if they're like, yes, it is, then you can go ahead and talk about the details. Otherwise, they might be like, you know what, nah, that doesn't really feel like where I'm at right now. And you'll probably sit there going like, oh, okay, that's a bit weird. Because normally at that point, you kind of gone, you know that you're sort of in the groove of stuff, right? So, you know, that's really the process. So long as you remember Gavin and you've got some questions there ready to elicit information out of people's heads, then it is going to make your life so much easier, and it fucking feels good, right? Because even if they don't buy from you, they've had loads of value. Even if you don't pitch them, they've had loads of value. Even if it's not the right fit, they've had value. You've probably had a great conversation, and you're off and running. The next part, so we've got the Gavin, and then there's the O, which is OH, which is objection handling. Now, hands up, who doesn't like objection handling? Can I put 2 hands up? See, the thing with objection handling is people often there might be a question that gets asked and they're like, shit, right? Or they might say, oh, look, that sounds great, but look, I just don't have the money right now. Okay, so people's fears kick in, all right? And yes, some people might not have the money, some people may not have the time, but you can just ask some further questions elegantly and graciously. Ask some other questions to find out what's going on in the back of their head, because usually it's just a fear-based thing that comes out of their mouth, because they might be standing on the edge of the diving board, kind of like, I don't know if I should jump or should I not, or, you know, what should I do? And, you know, no. So you can make a decision how you approach it. Now, one way that I've been taught by some previous mentors was to objection handle quite aggressively. But that's my interpretation of how it would happen. And I don't want to bully or shame or guilt or I don't want to use any of those types of things in order to get someone to buy. And I don't think anybody really wants to do that. I think there is some validity though in helping people to understand that sometimes we do get caught up in our own head and we make up reasons and excuses that aren't necessarily the reasons why we're saying them. Because let's face it, you know, what we know is that if somebody makes an offer to you, or if you make an offer to someone, and say you're a personal trainer, and maybe you're offering to help someone who has been really unhealthy, who really needs some accountability, who really needs to lose weight, and they've told you about how much stress they're under and this, that, and the other. It's like they can't afford to not do your stuff, right? They can't afford to not do it, because what happens if it gets worse? Like their health can decline. It will cost them more in health insurance. It might cost them more to try and fix it later on down the track than addressing it now. If there is something that you want badly enough, you will find a way to make it work, right? And I've been in that position like a few times throughout my business life, where we've had next to no money and I've really, really needed the help, and I've pulled out all stops. I've gone and sold jewelry down at our local markets when it's been pouring with rain. We were going to go and move into my in-laws' house. I was about to, you know, I screwed everything down, about to pull out my family so that we could rent our house out. You know, there's been times where things have been really freaking hairy, yet I still found a way. Somehow, it kind of always seems to work out. Found a way to make things work. And not everybody can do that, right? Not everybody wants to do that. How's this? I was, so my husband's headed off overseas, and I was driving back from the airport after dropping him off yesterday, and decided to call into my in-laws, and the little kids wanted to see them, and we're hanging around there, and I said, we're having a conversation with my father-in-law, and I said, you know what, there is not a lot of people really who have the gumption and the resilience and the tenacity and the courage to grow a business and stay in it for the long haul. Most people, this is why most businesses fail before 2 years, right? Usually it becomes too hard. They might run out of money, they run out of steam, they run out of hustle, and it just becomes a little bit easier to kind of go, you know what? Gave it a crack and I'm done. And that's okay, like that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. What we know though is that for the people who do keep going, who do find a way to make things work, who are resourceful, who just don't, we're just too fucking stupid really to give up, right? We keep going because there's really no other option and there's really no other alternative. They're the kinds of people that will make it work. And so for your people, if they really, 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 really want what you can offer them, and if they really want what you can do, and if they really see the value, like if they really see the value, and if they feel like they can't not do it, then they will find a way. And you do not have to pressure them in order to make that happen. And that's really the key there, where your job through this Gavin process, is to really determine, are you really the best person to help them? Do they really need this thing? And we can do that very, very elegantly and very nicely and compassionately and energetically and this type of stuff without it feeling like a high pressure phone sales scripted, you know, if you don't do this, you're a piece of shit. And I think that that's completely wrong. Like nobody should ever get off a phone call going like, wow, that I just felt like I want to go kind of like stab myself in the face. You know, that's not a nice experience. So it's important to objection handle though. You know, I did a bit of a rant around money just now, but it's the same thing with time. You know, if you really want to do something, you'll find the time. You know that. If you really want to lose weight, you could get up an hour earlier. You might not like it. You might not like getting up when it's dark. You might not like getting up and working out in your office or walking when it's raining. But if you really want to have more energy and if you really want to change your life, then that's a choice and a decision that you start to make. And that's really what you want your people to see, right? And I think the cool thing about this is that we can do it through the Gavin process. You can do this through your marketing. You can do this through your positioning. You can do this with your emails. You can do this in your videos. You keep letting people know that they have a choice. And whatever choice they make is absolutely fine, right? There's still more people to help. I promise you, there are people out there who will buy from you, who will give you money for what it is that you want to do, because that's just what will happen. So long as you're providing value to people, right? Don't rip people off or, set up Ponzi schemes and shit like that, because that's not cool. But, there are people out there who want and need what you have to offer. A lot of the time what happens is that people just get a little bit scared. They get a little bit afraid of stuff working. They get a little bit afraid of things not working. They get a little bit afraid of their life changing and not knowing what that's going to look like after they've used your stuff, okay? So that's my little rant on sales. So remember, Gavin, it's a flow, okay? Scripts can be helpful, but they can feel restrictive. They can feel scripted. Sometimes, depending on how you're kind of going into it, it can feel quite forced. So I don't want you to do that. Just follow the process, which is G for create that rapport, let them know that they can ask questions and you'll ask questions, and it's just really open and easy breezy. Find out what their gap is, investigate how you can help them and give them some value, and then you'll talk about the next steps from there. Hey Joe, So remember that flow, okay? And you kind of can't fuck it up unless you miss out the gap, and then you kind of break it. So you need to loop back. Like if someone says, so how can you help me? Well, how about we just come back over to the gap here and let me find out a bit more about you, yeah? So follow the flow. Have it making feel like it'll feel really nice, it'll feel really good. Just remember that it's easy breezy, and some people will say yes, some people will say no, some people will say maybe, and then you'll never hear from them again, which is fine, and that's all you need to do. Alrighty. So if you guys, when you guys have any questions, when you're having a listen to this, you're very welcome. Type them below. Would really love to answer things for you and help you with this. And remember, no matter what, a sales process is just a way of you being able to help people, right? To help people either become a client or not become a client. Either way, it's fine. What you'll do, hey Kim, so you'll either take them on as a client or you'll make a recommendation for where they need to go. Oh, you're welcome, Terry. You know, give them some advice, give them some steps, just get them freaking moving, okay? And you know what? I don't care if people buy from me or they buy from someone else. What I want you guys to have, I mean, I do care because I want to help you, but really, I just want people to get help. I just want them to have some help. I want you guys to have someone kicking your ass, supporting you, mentoring you, helping you. Really, at the end of the day, that's what's important to me, and I'm sure that that's what's really important to you because you care about people. You care about them getting a result. You care about them transforming their life. And so, yes, it would be nice for them to pay you, but so long as they find someone that fits for them, that's really, that conversation has then changed their life. Yeah, because you haven't done that douchey thing where you pitch to everybody that you talk to. You make your decision and make an offer only to those that feel right. All right? Excellent. Have an amazing day. Happy Monday. We've got next Monday is the season final of this particular series that I've been doing. So next week I wanted to share with you guys a bit about what my day is like. So we're doing a day in the life of Nicola. What I do, why I do it. I'm reading my notes, can't you? You can tell, can't you? How I do it, what I look at when I'm doing my planning. So this is around, like I've got 3 kids, as I mentioned. So kids, my calendar, scheduling, what I actually get done, how my planning's in there twice. That's a bit funny. Exercise. I don't know why that's on there because that hasn't happened of late. I walk every morning with my children, but that doesn't count as exercise. I've just joined an online yoga thing, which I'm so excited about. Maybe I'll be exercising by the time Monday rolls around. All right, guys, have an amazing Monday. I trust that this has helped. Share this with people that you think may need to hear it or would like to learn from it, or just let me know that this has helped you. All right, have a great day. I'll talk to you all next week.